I think this is my great-great-aunt Adelheid. Mr. Dickens tells me that when Uncle Reginald was young, she is the one who had the pool table removed from this room. She didn't approve of frivolous pastimes, apparently. Do you reckon this is why she haunts this room? It is her ghost we are talking to, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure it is. You are the detective, Mr. Big Detective.
What's this? What an interesting portrait. Such a pity there is nobody here who can tell me more about it. Actually, I was looking at that portrait over there. Can you tell me anything about it?
What, that? That's Ebenezer Boffington, the rich geezer. Long before our time, more's the pity. The saying goes, he buried a massive treasure somewhere around here. When he died, folks came looking for it from all over the country. Nobody found anything though, so they stopped looking eventually. All that must have been 100 years ago. It's why Wienerwald Woods has such a fancy inn, you know. All those treasure hunters had to stay somewhere.
What do we have here? Yes. Is there anything I should know about this portrait?
What, that? That's Mabel of Boffington. She's the one with the pineapple empire, factories and fame and such. Very successful businesswoman. Anything else?
Thank you for these valuable information. I wouldn't like to meet you in a dark corner. That pineapple on your head does look spooky.
Are you talking to me, sir?
Actually, I'm talking to that portrait up there. It's a very haunting picture.
What, good old Mabel Boffington? A haunting picture?
I think it is. Just out of interest, do you think she'd have a reason to haunt this house?
Good old Mabel? Reason to haunt Boffington Hall? I wouldn't reckon so, no. And even if she did have reason, she would lack opportunity. Isn't there rules for ghosts and such things? Don't you have to, like, die a violent death and then haunt the place where you died?
Now that you put it like that, I think that's a pretty accurate summary of the conditions to haunt a place. Violent death, haunt the place where you died.
Well, if those are accepted conditions, you can rule out good old Mabel. She never died a violent death. And not at Boffington Hall, neither. She lived happily ever after on one of those sunny islands where they grow the pineapples.
Lived happily ever after. No reason to haunt. I see. Well, thank you for the uplifting information. How interesting. Mr. Dickens, why is this lady wearing a pineapple on her head?
It's just Dickens, sir, not Mr. Dickens. And that's Mabel of Boffington, the founder of the famous Boffington Pineapple Empire. I can't believe you haven't heard of her. She's by far the most well-known Boffington of all time. I admire her extremely. She was universally liked, even by all the servants. That is a virtue indeed, wouldn't you say so, sir?
What's this?
Isn't old Lord Ludwig a scary one? They say he always bit off more than he could chew. Ludwig the Glutton, some called him. He died with a spoon down his beak. Now, you would think that'd put a bird off his dinner for a while, but not old Ludwig. He's been haunting our kitchen, or so cook swears on a stack of Mrs. Beeton's. She can't leave a dish out on the counter without half of it disappearing as soon as her back is turned. That's ghosts for you. Dead, but greedy.
What's this?
Admiring the old general, are you? Isn't he an impressive fellow?
I do like a flamingo in uniform.
It's a shame uniforms don't look that dashing anymore. The old general was in the war, 1888. Herr Wilhelm von Boffington, that was his name. Sadly, he did not die in the war. He died in a duel, actually not very far from this house. Sometimes, late at night, you can hear the clanking of steel on steel in the corridors. That's the old general's ghost, fighting the duel over and over Or so they say.
Wait a minute. Didn't you just tell me that you and the valet do a lot of secret fencing at night?
Oh no, you caught us out, sir. We're telling everyone it's a ghost so they won't suspect us. Please don't tell anyone. They'll forbid it for sure, and we wouldn't like to be unprepared when the day of the duck comes. Anates de super, sir.
Excuse me, can you tell me anything about this portrait?
Oh, that's the twins. What a gruesome pair. Algernon and Estragon of Boffington they were. Not too long ago either. You see, they really were twins, but they hated each other's guts. Always at each other's pink throats, those two. Oh, they met a nasty end too. Drowned each other in Boffington Lake, as the story goes. Isn't that awful? That's why the lake is all closed off with fences and no trespassing either. It's because their evil spirits still linger there. They're lying in wait to pull you under the water as well. Keep away from Boffington Lake, sir, if you value your life.
What a horrible story. Thanks for relaying it to me.
Oh, well, if that will be all, sir.
Well, what's this? What an interesting portrait. Such a pity there is nobody here who can tell me more about it. Yes, about that portrait.
Oh, isn't she beautiful? That's Hyacinth Boffington, that is. Only they call her Cynthia because she fell in love with a commoner. Oh, such a tragic story it is. She was never allowed to see her lover, so she met him in secret at the middle of the labyrinth.
What's so tragic about that?
Oh, it was very tragic. She used to have a map, you see, so as not to get lost in the labyrinth. But her parents didn't want her to go on meeting her young man, so they took the map away. And Cynthia, she went into the labyrinth regardless, and she must have lost her way because she never got out again. Some say she still haunts Boffington Hall. That must have been 50 years ago, and still nobody goes near the labyrinth but Mr. McTurpin, the gardener. And he has to for the hedges and things.
Another ghost?
It's spooky, isn't it? I will tell you something else. You see that flower over there, under the portrait? That's a hyacinth, Cynthia's favourite flower. We call it the ghost flower because none of us knows how it's getting there. If we take it away, a fresh one appears, as if by magic. I've asked Mr. McTurpin about it, and he says there is not a single hyacinth growing anywhere near Boffington Hall, nor in this garden or greenhouse neither. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll get back to my duties.
What's this?
Oh, blimey, Mr. Pick Detective, you gave me such a fright. I wasn't expecting to see you here. I just came in for a cup of tea.
I was just looking at these portraits.
Oh, yes. Do you know, these must be my grandparents. My actual grandparents on my father's side. I recognize them because my father had a photograph of them, you see. Only he didn't tell me they were nobility. He was called Bertram, and she was Emilia. Emilia doesn't sound very noble, though, if you ask me. Their names are all I know about them, sadly. My father and my grandparents were not on speaking terms. Apparently, they disowned him for marrying my mother. A showgirl wasn't good enough for Lord and Lady Beaks, it seems.
Under these circumstances, your grandparents are my top suspects for haunting you.
Now that you mention it, I didn't want to say anything before. It sounds so silly, but the ghost does seem to haunt me at a rather personal level, you see. At night, when I'm asleep, or almost asleep, I can hear this voice. A voice right next to my ear, whispering at me to leave, to go away, to never come back. To be honest with you, it is all rather dramatic. To be told in such clear terms that I am not welcome here at Boffington Hall, the house of my 4 flamingos. But that must be exactly what my grandparents said to my father as well. So I guess it could be Granddad's voice I am hearing at night in bed. Look at him. He looks mean enough.
Thanks for sharing. That's a lot of information to consider. Ah, what's this?
You couldn't do better than to show interest in Mr. Heinrich von Boffington, sir. He is the first Boffington to step forth from history, the forefather of all Boffingtons, the idol in all things, a model of chivalry and heroism if there ever was one. Without fault or fail, he was the greatest knight of them all. He was lost on a most noble quest. To Catland he went, in search of the cup, as so many did in his time. Alas, he returned heavily injured, only to succumb to his wounds here in these very halls. Some say he still roams them in search of the cup, the goal he could not meet in life. If only all of us had such perseverance, sir.
What's this?
Good heavens, what are you doing here?
I'm investigating. I'm a private investigator, remember?
Oh, I remember you perfectly. You're the private investigator fella who came with her ladyship's friend, Miss Ella. But I thought you were investigating the other guests, not the servants. And certainly not me. What are you doing in my room?
I'm kind of interested in this portrait. Can you tell me anything about it?
Tell you about the Dorothea Boffington? Of course I can tell you about her. She's the one we call the White Lady. Her ghosts have been spotted in the house on various occasions. She was only a poor relation to the family by marriage. After her husband died, the Boffingtons were obliged to keep her on. She wasn't treated very well, mind you. They practically locked her up in the wide attic and forgot about her. After her death, she has been haunting the upper floors of the house, silently gliding about, as unobtrusive in death as she was in real life. Don't be alarmed if you see her up there, but I would advise you to stay away from that part of the house.
But my room is up there.
Oh, of course. Now I've completely forgotten why I came here in the first place. And the chatter will do that for you. I will get back to my duties then.
Interesting.
You found my portrait, young man. Don't I look old and grumpy? This picture used to be upstairs in my bedroom, but it is much better employed down here. My little friend feels so alone when I'm not with him, so I brought him the portrait. Now he can have my company, even in my absence.